Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Batman Arkham Origins New Game Plus video walkthrough. We are ascending the Royal. We now have the awesome electricity glove knuckle duster things that you get from the Electrocutioner, and they are my favourite addition to this game. This point comes with an addendum though, a nice little footnote, as most points that I make generally do. As much as I like the visual effect of it, I think they break the game. I think they make what they do too easy and kind of completely underwhelm the balance of the combat. And you might wonder why I think this. Well, for people who won't be playing the game, who have no idea, I'll go on to explain why. So, when you activate these gloves, you will stun any opponent you hit, regardless of what they are wearing, what they are using, or who they are. You'll stun everything in one hit. And one thing I did notice about it, which is really good, is it gives you the critical bonus. So when you hit people, the combo goes up by 2 instead of 1. So it's a fantastic way of boosting the modifier. And I believe in the challenge rooms, although I haven't tested them yet, that the use of those gloves is going to be what separates the very, very good scores from the rest. You know, the high-end score are going to be the people that learn how to exploit the gloves to get the most possible combo variation, you know, per enemy, per fight basis, which a lot of maths goes into that, a lot of precision, not the kind of thing I'm interested in. I just like responding and reacting and punching dudes and getting high numbers and, you know, feeling like a badass. So you'll not be seeing me doing too much of that, but I predict that's where the score system's going to go. But the issue with this is every hit stuns things. So what's the point in shield guys? What's the point in electric guys? What's the point in those armored guys? There is no point. So the challenge that they, you know, pose, the puzzle that they place themselves as in this fight, in this puzzling battle mechanic, is arbitrarily just passed over for this win button, especially, effectively a win button. And I don't mind, because I think that you need something like that sometimes, especially in this game when they literally throw rooms with 50 fucking dudes at you. 50 dudes who do not die. Like, they keep getting up, they keep getting up, you keep knocking them down, they keep getting up. It gets obnoxious, so I don't mind them at all. I just can appreciate when people are probably concerned about, you know, how they work. Which is not something that I'm too bothered about. I am interested though to see what those challenge rooms are like, because Arkham City introduced this notion of campaigns, which, you know, if you want to elongate your players' experience and how long people play your game for, I'm all for adding new features, new modes and all that good stuff, but just combining Predator missions and combat missions that you've already played and beaten together in a little gauntlet with a couple of, you know, modifiers is not my idea of fun. So I never did those campaigns. I think I'm going to go back and do them against my nature, because I want to get the achievements for doing them, and I'm a little bit silly like that. But I just never understood why they didn't focus those energies into something more interesting and more fun. You know, I'd rather have a much better piece of DLC than those campaigns. You know, I would rather you give me access to another character to do the combat and to do the Predator stuff like they did with the DLC in Arkham City than those campaigns. Because I don't think, you know, forcing you to play gauntlets of levels you've already done before is all that interesting at all. And that might just be me. There might be people that love those campaigns, but it's not enough. And that's not mentioning that I personally did not enjoy the Predator missions in Arkham City. I thought they were bullshit. And I have good reasons for that, which many people probably never came across, but I had a lot of bugs with those missions. One of the great ones, I wish I had my capture device when I wish I was recording when I played that mission, and I'll never forget it. It was stun a guy when he was picking a weapon out of a box, and you had to stun him by using the bat toothpaste. Which sounds pretty simple, and probably is pretty simple, but it was the last challenge I needed to get the 3 batarangs on that challenge, and I'd done the other 2, I was waiting for him to run towards the box, the toothpaste was down, he went to the box, started to picking the weapon out, I hit the detonator, and it didn't register. And I'm sorry, but at that moment, I never ever touched anything ever again on those Predator missions because it just pissed me off so much. I don't mind being punished for my errors. I applaud being punished for my errors because it's the only way you're going to learn. But being punished because the game's detection of what I'm supposed to do just didn't register can go and suck a big dick. And I never played them ever again. And it tainted my opinion of that game because it left such a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm hoping when I go back I have a little bit more success. And, you know, maybe I'll find out that it was human error and everything will be fine again. But it just pissed me off. It pissed me off a lot. Every fight from now on, you're going to notice in the top left, I've got this big glowing battery bar. Every time you land a punch, it's going to increase. When it gets to full, you can push both the analogs in and you can activate your super sexy electric gloves. As I've mentioned, they're going to do increased damage, they're going to stun people, they're going to increase your modifier and your multiplier, significantly. There is no downfall to using that ability. One thing you're going to see me do is not use that ability. And you might wonder, well, why, Chris? Why would you do that? It seems counterintuitive. And it is. But it kind of throws me off, the gloves. I'm getting used to them now. I've played a little bit longer. But when I was first using them, enemies that I'm used to taking more than one punch or requiring another action don't. So I can't turn off years of muscle memory and programming, you know. I know that when I hit a guy with a cape, it's going to stun him. Or I know that when I go towards a certain enemy and I throw a punch, I might have to throw another punch. You know, when I go near an armoured guy, it's not first nature to punch him because you've got to stun him first. So there's things like that. And then it also works on the reverse of this, where the dudes who wear armour, you think they're going to go down in one punch, like all the other enemies do, because the gloves are so powerful. And then you lose your modifier or you lose your combo because you don't do the beatdown on him. You only do it once and you kind of get, you know, gravitationally stuck to him and you're in this animation and you're like, what the fuck is Batman doing? So there are a lot of really silly personal reasons why I don't use the gloves as much as I should. But I implore anyone who's struggling and who wants an easier time to get good at using them. The Bane fight that's coming up in a few videos was one attempt, one record, which I was super happy about, because on hard, on my new game, Bane beat me up a whole bunch of times. I think I died maybe 10 times against him. I don't even have a good excuse for why, because I don't think the fight is challenging. I just kept getting screwed by sometimes the camera, sometimes my inability to roll away from the ridiculous tracking, and sometimes just getting clipped a lot by the enemies, because it does happen. You know, there's a lot of them, they're aggressive and they swarm you. But on this, I managed to do him first time, which I was really happy about. And don't get me wrong, it's a close fight. I think it's going to be an exciting fight to watch for people who have no interest in this game, because it comes down to the wire where it's either him or me. You know, I have to play good or I die, and back to the checkpoint. And fortunately for me, you know, I'm Batman. But once you drop down into this area, this is one of the more interesting areas of the game, and one of the areas that definitely plays up on the theme of the Joker, which is the cloud. The cloud? What the fuck am I on about? Microsoft Cloud. No, it's got nothing to do with clouds or altocumulus or nimbuses or any of that stuff. The clown aesthetic, the carnival aesthetic, just the jovial, jesty side of everything that features. And I wish there was more of it. And I know there is quite a lot of it. You know, the thugs wear masks, quite clownish masks. There are, you know, candy canes sticking out of people's faces and televisions on people's heads and moments like this. But I just wish they'd take it to the next step in some of the games and just have it really, really obtuse. Like, I'm still waiting for a vehicle section, and I am so against car games and vehicle games and driving games and all that kind of stuff. If there's no weapons or crazy shortcuts or jumps or random boosts or arcade controls or no rubber banding, or sorry, you know, just no rubber banding at all, in a racing game, I couldn't give a shit. Like, you put a Forza on and I'll fall asleep. I'll fall asleep like it's Trevor McDonald telling me about a country I've never heard of and probably will never venture to. And I'm just gone in an instant. it's not my game anymore. You know, I've never really been into the simulation racing. I've never really been into racing that much. I just kind of liked Beetle Adventure Racing and some of the more silly arcadey ones. But in a Batman game, it makes me think of being a kid and watching Batman drive the car, and watching Batman drive the Batplane and crash it after he cut down all the giant balloons that were spreading gas. It makes me think of all these really iconic moments that, you know, resonate with me because they were my childhood. And I want to drive a Batmobile. And I have no idea why they haven't put one of those features in the game. And I'm not talking about driving it around Gotham City and having it as the equivalent of a horse in Skyrim. I mean just a linear driving sequence, like what you can find in Bayonetta in those driving sequences. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be long. It can just be short and sweet, but make you feel like Batman. You know, I don't understand why there's not a flying section, or a flying boss, or just something that enables you to be in the Batplane or the Batmobile. These vehicles that matter so much to just the character. And we've never had all that much control over it at all. And as I've said, I am the last person to advocate wanting anything like that in a game, because I generally hate those sections. I'm not a fan of the forced, you know, on rails this moment, on rails that moment, chopper gunner sequence and stuff. Because I think it's very tired. But I think because these games have never done it, that it would definitely benefit them, and it would give them that little bit of diversity from what you're normally doing. And if you want a good example of something that's done something similar, the original Army of Two, for all its faults, had these incredible hovercraft sections that were kind of shit, but they were so different to everything else you were doing, they spread up the game really well. And in spite of their, you know, lack of polish, they were quite fun because they were so different to everything else you'd been doing. An even better example of a functional and surprising one would be Halo, is it Reach? Where you do a flying level, and it comes out of nowhere, and you're flying like Rogue Squadron, and it's a good level. You know, that kind of notion, just something that comes out of nowhere and boom, you're in it, and you have to deal with it, and it's well designed, it's not too long, it doesn't outstay its welcome. You know, that's what I would have liked to have seen. This is a big fight here, guys, with one of the giant dudes that, when he runs towards you, if you can evade, you should be fine, but if he grabs you, there's almost no way to tap A fast enough if you're close to a wall to stop him from slamming you. It's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I'm sure you'll be able to get through it, because this is not a tough fight compared to some of the ones you've done earlier. As always, I like to prioritise this guy by beating him up as soon as he flinches to a... Do you see that bullshit? That guy punched me facing the other direction. God, I hate stuff like that. I would slow that down just to show you the nonsense. Like, games aren't realistic. You know, the people that make the argument that games are realistic shouldn't be playing games, because they're looking at them the wrong way. Like, there are certain games that set out to be simulations. They try their best to be as realistic as they can. But at the end of the day, when you fly that 747 into the ground, nobody dies. That is not realistic. When it comes to a game like this, it's a comic book character, for God's sake. You know, we're not looking for realism, we're looking to be Batman and get that enjoyment. So, when a character swings his fist, and there is no way his fist is connected with you, yet you still take the damage because of the invisible box of influence and arc of the attack that is registered as a dangerous zone that you were supposedly in at that moment of time, is bullshit. And it happens far too often on games. It really does. And some of them have quite a logical solution for it. You know, for instance, if someone swings a sword and they catch you on the back edge of the sword as it goes behind them, like, the sword did touch you, but you're looking at it once again from a realistic perspective. From a gameplay perspective, the lethality of that weapon should only be active in the front arc. In the back arc, it should be completely negated. Because that's how games work. That's how games usually work, and just really strange that stuff like that happens. I always bring it back to Castlevania Lord of Shadow, because it bothered me so much, I almost hated that game. And if you've never played it, when people start to attack on that game, their entire body becomes a weapon. And you might think, well, isn't their entire body a weapon anyway? And my answer to that would be, you know, touche. Maybe they're a very gifted belly slapper, I don't know. But When somebody pulls a fist back to throw a punch, signposting the said punch so that I have enough time to avoid it or counter it, such as the paradigms of gameplay, I should not be punished by his belly touching me as if his fist had touched me, as he's leaning back to do it, because it doesn't make any sense and it's stupid. But that's what happens on that game, and it's something that I abhorred about it, and I would love to talk to the combat designer to say, did anybody mention this in testing? Did anybody notice this? And was it intentional? Because I love it when a designer claims ownership of a problem, because it means that they stick to their guns. And that's one of the worst things about devs these days, that just completely crumble under pressure from a thousand really mouthy internet people. You know, a bunch of people didn't like the Mass Effect ending because they just didn't think it gave them enough closure. Like, regardless of if you didn't like the ending, guys, they ended it the way they wanted to, and we need to respect their artistic credibility and their integrity. But instead, what did they do? They rewrote the ending. You don't rewrite your ending.